if you need manager training, you need to go find a person called a manager trainer. Or if you need sales training, you need to go find a person called a sales trainer. And what was interesting for us, we were reflecting on, we had a guest lecture in our business school program towards the end, and he taught us decision-making frameworks, but he was a mountaineer. Like, he was not a decision-making trainer.
Okay.
And so it felt like there was this interesting opportunity to make live learning more scalable, but also just to kind of redefine who we get to learn from in the workplace and not overly rely on only people who have the term corporate trainer in their profile. And so now we have hundreds of instructors on our platform who are former FBI agents, Olympic athletes, high school principals, astronauts, Broadway performers, and they have very interesting lived experiences, and they are great facilitators of adult learning. And so employees get excited and they don't feel like they're checking the box.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My name is Jean Camargo, and my guest here today is Jason Lavender, who is a co-founder and CEO of Electives. Jason, thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited for us to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Why don't we start off with just some context? Tell the listener a little bit more about you, a little bit more about Electives, who you guys are, who you help, and anything else you'd like to share about the company.
Yeah, sure. So I'm based in Boston, one of the co-founders. We started the company about 4.5 years ago. My background, I started my career as an actuary at an HR consulting firm, was there a decade plus, then went to a healthcare startup and then started Electives. And the kind of quick inspiration was in that decade plus at two different companies. I never had the best corporate training experience. And I don't think I'm alone on that front. I think a lot of people go through some pretty painful corporate training. But at the time when we started Electives, my co-founder and I had just finished business school at MIT, and we had such an amazing learning experience there. And there was this kind of contrasting feeling of, we knew what great learning felt like, and we knew how painful corporate training could feel like. And so we were inspired to basically kind of change how we think about training and turn it into a positive instead of feeling like a chore and kind of a check the box type of experience.
Yeah, no, that's really, really awesome. And it's been such a huge pattern from so many people that I've spoken with now, so many leaders, so many different companies, that sometimes corporations can just have the training be the, hey, check the box, watch that however long course that you have to go through. And then people are just like doing anything else that they can, click connect, and then have to wait through it and then wait through it and wait through it. And nothing really, not that nothing translates into the real workforce, but it's very hard to see that translation. So tell me a little bit more about how you guys operate in that sense that allows the learning to be better, allows it to be very, I'm not sure if it is more hands-on or how it translates into the actual skills that are utilized on the day-to-day. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So when we were first kind of researching the training market, we were totally green in this space. So I think sometimes that is actually a blessing, because you kind of just ask as many questions and you're curious and you don't know why things are the way they are. And so we asked chief people officers, heads of HR, heads of L&D, just a ton of questions in the early days. And I think there were two really interesting insights that were thematic across every conversation. So one was the training pendulum, to your point, had swung very far into this pre-recorded watch, a training video and take a quiz and kind of move on and hope the fast forward button is but they had kind of moved away from this live interactive learning. So that was one piece, just from a medium perspective. The second piece really interesting was there was almost this kind of like assumption of, if you need manager training, you need to go find a person called a manager trainer. Or if you need sales training, you need to go find a person called a sales trainer. And what was interesting for us, we were reflecting on, we had a guest lecture in our business school program towards the end, and he taught us decision-making frameworks, but he was a mountaineer. Like, he was not a decision-making trainer. And so it felt like there was this interesting opportunity to make live learning more scalable, but also just to kind of redefine who we get to learn from in the workplace and not overly rely on only people who have the term corporate trainer in their profile. And so now we have hundreds of instructors on our platform who are former FBI agents, Olympic athletes, high school principals, astronauts, Broadway performers. And they have very interesting lived experiences, and they are great facilitators of adult learning. And so employees get excited and they don't feel like they're checking the box.
No, it's really, really cool, because in a way, I think, and tell me if you agree with this, I think that's certification or the degree or all these things, they have their strengths, and there's many things that are good that come from them. But if you don't have them and you do have the life skills and the experiences and the repetitions over and over and over of doing these certain things, you are just some oftentimes just as experienced, if not more experienced or more prevalent in a lot of these fields in these areas. And especially if it's like a cool person, like an astronaut, like an athlete, like someone else that can be, call it, recognizable. It creates a little bit even a higher sense of, wow, this is interesting for me to learn because this cool person has done it before, and they're going to be the ones teaching me. So even better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think there's two things that we kind of take advantage of. One, you drive attendance and engagement in the session because for hundreds of years we've always learned from storytelling, and for somebody who can
Mm,
tell an amazing story with a lesson, it just becomes that much more memorable.
yeah.
But the other part that's interesting too is it's funny. I'll never forget like early days of electives. One of our clients, we had just had a class, and the instructor was a former Navy SEAL, now Paralympic gold medalist, and he was teaching goal setting. And
Okay.
about a week after the class, the client sent me a text message, and it just said WTF. And at early days of being a founder, I'm like, oh no, what did we do wrong? Like,
Yeah.
please, can we talk? And she was joking. And the reason she was joking was we have something in our platform called learning nudges. So a week after
Okay.
class, they receive reminders. And that Navy SEAL, Dan, sent a TED talk that he recommended the employees just watch on goal setting. And everybody was watching it and talking about it over Slack. And I was like, that all sounds good. Why is this a problem? And she was like, I sent that same TED talk 6 months ago and no one clicked on it.
Uh,
You're kind of just laughing at, you can take advantage of that interesting kind of personality and leverage it for good.
Mhm. That's interesting. It also sounds like it creates a sense of like community for the employees internally as well, right? Because they're all part of the same, I'll call it a seminar, but I know it's not a seminar, but a part of that experience here of learning together, going through together, asking the same questions, having the same doubts, having the same concerns, but then they're using that same, they're using that experience together to pull that back and say, yeah, hey, we're all facing these same issues, these same challenges, but at the same time, we can use each other on top of the instructor to push through. And it sounds like it really also feeds into the company culture at times.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the early, you're spot on. I think one of the early lessons when we sat in on all the classes in the early days to kind of observe the behavior. And I think there was some obvious kind of things that we noticed with live learning where it's like you can ask the instructor questions, that's a
Mhm.
plus, or you can be
Yeah.
in breakout rooms with your colleagues and engage, that's a plus. But there was all these other subtle things to your point where we have a manager training and someone would say like, does anybody here get stressed about giving hard feedback? And actually just seeing everybody's face kind of say like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
That was in itself a learning. Like before you even get into learning about how to do it, there was just kind of this, I'm not alone, and a confidence
Mhm.
build. And then afterwards, everybody has that shared language that you can go back to and say like, hey, let's use the 4 C's, like we were all in this together. Like, let's make sure we're all kind of holding each other accountable.
Oh, that's really awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I'd love to shift the conversation here a little bit more onto the business itself now, onto electives and what you guys have been building so far. You mentioned it's been about 4 years, and through these 4 years, you guys have found some very, very amazing growth, which is awesome to see as well. Talk to me a little bit about the challenges when you were first starting the company in the first two, three, and now leaning into the fourth year, and how are they different from maybe some of the challenges you guys are facing right now to keep the company growing?
Yeah. Yeah, just to kind of like put it in buckets of stages. And I think a lot of startups probably are in the similar bucket, but I think B2B kind of in the people space, I would kind of describe 2021 and 2022 as a little bit easier. It's never easy as an early stage company, but there was just one, more access to capital, and two, a lot of companies were investing in their people. DEIB training was prevalent, investing in manager training was prevalent, and there was just kind of this, there was a war on talent, and so people were, hyper focused on making sure they were upskilling and retaining their people. Um, Broadly speaking, the last 2 years have just been a little bit more challenging from an investment in people. So we saw a big dip in terms of like DEIB training content in general, and talent was just kind of it skewed a little bit more in the employer side versus the employee side. And now we're starting to see that shift kind of swing back. And so
Mhm.
I usually tend to be optimistic, and so I've always said the last 2 years have been more challenging, but I actually think it's been a blessing because it makes us a little bit sharper in terms of really fine tuning the content to make sure, is this super important right now, or is this a nice to have piece of content? If it's nice to have, it can wait.
Mhm.
Whereas nice to have content was probably actually pretty interesting in 2021. So, and it goes beyond the content. The product needs to be that much better. We've seen layoffs within our kind of HR L&D customer base, and so they're even leaner, and so we have to productize things that take things off their plate. And so
Mm,
we've seen a lot of this kind of backlash and kind of change in demand turn into a good thing, but
mm.
you just have to react as quickly as you possibly can to it.
Yeah, sure. It sounds like it despite the challenges, it brought a lot of great clarity for the company of what needs to be done and what needs to be improved and how these things can improve the outcomes as well. And tell me if this is incorrect for me to assume, but um, it seems to me that I'll call it the growth of AI, even though like AI is just a buzz term for everyone to use for anything now. But it sounds like that could be that thing that you mentioned that took a toll on, hey, people trying to, or companies being a little bit more weary about investing in people. Hey, we need to leverage AI, leverage AI, leverage AI. But now you mentioned that back turn, which to me sounds like, hey, yes, AI is a great thing and technology is a great thing, but people still need to be able to leverage it correctly. There's always someone taking care of the tools, taking care of the software, taking care of the people, taking care of the tools and the software. So, is that all correct for me to assume?
Yeah, it's spot on. And I think we look at AI in kind of two different ways. There's AI from a training and development, which is kind of core to our business. So we offer AI classes that are, kind of, there's anything from prompt engineering 101 all the way up to something a little bit more, advanced. We also offer all kinds of soft skills or human skill classes that are even more important now, to your point, in terms
Yeah.
of, we can't just tell people like use this product. Like there needs to be some change management, some EQ, et cetera. So that's all kind of on the training and people development, just how is AI changing workforces? And then of course, within our own products, everything in our platform used to be only live classes. And now we've introduced AI simulations to complement the live class, which
Mm,
is essentially you take a class on feedback and now you can have an AI simulated conversation with a AI colleague and give them some challenging feedback and basically get some scorecards and feedback immediately. So we're infusing it into our own product. Yeah, exactly.
okay, awesome. Cool. So, sorry, I interrupted you there. Please finish your thought. Please finish your thought.
No, I was going to say, I think there's almost the two lenses are almost, how can we help other orgs use AI for their teams and their business, but then internally, of course, we're looking at the same thing and
Oh, got it.
going to that lean HR team is kind of our ICP. If we can build agents and other tools to just help them take things off their plate, then even better.
Awesome. That's really, really cool. And then tell me a little bit more about we'll stick on this AI topic as well. So many companies that I've spoken with are doing everything that they can to implement it into their systems, internally, in their teams, in the SOPs, like everything as much as possible to, as we know, optimize the processes. Of course, be a little bit more on the leaner side, and just make things quote unquote better. Are you guys also using AI externally to acquire more business, to find more partners, to find more clients to work with as well? Is that something you guys are operating in marketing, sales, business development, etc.?
Yeah, all of the above. I think we've either kind of struck new vendor relationships with some AI native sales and marketing kind of tech stacks, or we've just been using our own GPTs and our own agents to create marketing newsletters and sales emails and everything else. So it's been a combination, and yeah, we've seen a significant increase in productivity for even a smaller sales team than we had 2 years ago.
That's really, really cool. And there's a question that I always like to ask, Jason, to almost every single guest that comes on the podcast. And I think you would be a great victim of this as well. So I would push it towards you too, which is this. Let's say you had a magic wand and you could just wave this amazing, phenomenal wand and just solve one challenge, one obstacle, one thing in the business that just maybe always knocking on the door, being an annoyance that you know that if you solve it, it would unlock all the growth goals you have, all the revenue targets, client acquisition, really allowing it to hit all those achievements you want to for the company. You wave that wand, and out of the many different priorities as business owners that we have, you get to pick one. What's the one thing you want to solve to achieve all those growth goals?
It's a great question. Where my head goes to is we've experimented over the last couple of years in terms of how the market has evolved. And I would say if I waved a magic wand and absolutely nailed a very simple positioning statement that skewed more painkiller than vitamin for our ICP, that feels like the unlock. And the reason I say that is we tend to see a lot of the aha moments of kind of value creation and even kind of early perceived value like 3 months into working with our clients. And so there's a disconnect between the prospect who's never worked with electives and the client who's 3 to 6 months in.
Mm.
And I don't think we've unlocked that in a very simple way. Even just recently, I was on the phone with a prospect, and I kind of found myself describing a lot of the what, and I wasn't unlocking the pain point attached to the business in a meaningful way. So I think that
Mm.
would be the magic wand tool that I would use today.
That's really, really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And it sounds like something I've been hearing quite often as well, which is once the customer comes in and they see the value, they're immersed in it, it's like a no-brainer, all done. But the starting point of being able to educate them on it or making them aware of the outcomes that will be achieved from there, that's where a lot of the, I'll call it the hurdle can be. Is that kind of what it is for you guys as well?
Yeah, it's exactly right. I think, and going back to why we started the company, training has notoriously been pretty bad. So, like when we first talk with a prospect, they're usually in the red in terms of expectations.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that our platform does that we all take for granted at this point. And again, going back to that point of like 3 months in, our new clients will say, "Oh, I didn't even realize, you tracked all the attendance and you automated the marketing flyers and sent all this stuff." And we're like, yeah, maybe we should talk about that more, in the sales conversation because it's all work that's coming off their plate. It's just table stakes for us, and we
Yeah.
don't we don't we don't lead with that
Mm.
as often as we may should
Yeah.
have.
That's really interesting because like in a way, it's also can, and I don't know if this is correct or not. So if it's incorrect, please let me know. But it's almost like there is that hesitation, or it sounds like it can be a hesitation from their side because, like, hey, we have training and we've always used this training. It's how we've done it always before, like for the past however many years, right? So they're just so used to doing this thing that there can be a misconception of, hey, even if I do adapt this new thing, we have the old thing that's been working fine. So why should I go to the new one? So um that in it of itself can seem like that hesitation to take action, even though taking that action and making that investment is going to unlock huge, huge results for them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the hard part too is early days, we used to see some of the engagement and utilization data of the pre-recorded training libraries, and they're abysmal. They're 3 to 5% across the whole year. So your companies are paying for all these licenses, and no one is using them. And so, to us as kind of the naive entrepreneurs, we come in and the first 2 years we have 10x their utilization rates, and we're like, this is going to be so easy. We're going to just tell everybody that we're 10xing.
Yeah.
But then you realize that the point of contact who you're chatting with was also the same point of contact who implemented that program that's not working. And there is a just human nature element of that of, well, maybe I need to communicate more, and maybe our employees are just tired, and there's a lot of kind of questions of, we think we can get it better next year.
Mm.
But ultimately, it may just be a stale kind of piece of shelfware, but it's hard to remove that when you were the person who put it in.
Interesting. Is there anything you wish you knew before you started this journey, Jason? Anything that you're like, oh, if I had this piece of information, like I would have told this to myself many times over and over and over to facilitate this entire journey.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million. I think both internally in terms of kind of building teams, hiring. There's so many lessons that ultimately you can read every book you want to, but until you go through it, you're just never going to truly learn it.
Yeah.
I think in the market, one of the things that I did not realize or fully appreciate was just kind of the budget owners within B2B kind of enterprises, and how quickly, we've seen like sales training as an example moves like that. It's impacting a revenue kind of driving function,
Mhm.
whereas manager training there's a little bit of, even though our managers are on fire and they're not doing well and there's a ton of pain, it's a little bit harder to kind of get that budget approval through the HR kind of lens. And so those are just things that, we didn't have that learning and that appreciation for. Ultimately, both of them move the needle in a very important way, but it's on us to ensure that we arm our clients and our prospects with the information that makes their life easier.
Amazing. Jason, I have one final question for you here. This has been incredible. So thank you so much for sharing everything so far. And this final question that I have is actually not from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you were. So are you ready for the question?
Yes.
Here it is. What is the real purpose of what you do? In what way are you truly helping people?
Great question. So it's an easy one for us. So our kind of mission statement throughout the whole business, and it's been this way since day one, is to help people grow. So it's pretty simple in terms of we want to help people learn, we want to help people develop, we want to help people grow. And so, in the early days of electives, I used to describe it as I would meet some instructor whatever their background was and have a 30-minute conversation like this. And we would hang up and I would just think like, gosh, if we could have thousands more people around the world get to learn from that person, like that's a great feeling. And we've been able to do that across hundreds of classes and hundreds of thousands of employees at this point. And so any way we can help people grow, that makes us feel great.
That's so awesome. And I actually want to add something to that, what you said there. I find it so intriguing that there are so many people, and I don't have any statistics from this, but I would say like at least 70% of the population. And if I'm wrong here, please someone correct me. But I would say at least 70% of the population, they finish their college degree or high school degree, and that's their learning done. Like there's no interest to keep learning and keep growing, which is one of the reasons why I named this podcast The Business of Learning. I think there's always something to learn, right? And it makes me excited to find these new things, learn these new concepts, acquire these new skills, because the more I learn, the more I figure out I don't know anything. It's like there's so much more to it. And then like back to your point of like, hey, if I can get thousands of people to learn from this one person, then there's so much growth that happens just from that one small thing. So I find it so truly exciting when I'm speaking with people like you who do have that passion to help others grow, help others learn, because there are so many people that don't have that desire. And I think those of us who are on that side of the coin that do have that desire and want to help are truly doing something very amazing. So Jason, thank you so much for your time. This has been so incredible. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you and of course about electives?
Yeah. So thanks again for having me. Love the conversation and excited to just listen to more episodes and learn from more of your guests and you. I would say two things. One, if you want to learn about electives, our website is electives.io. You can reach me at jason@electives.io, and I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So all of that is, please feel free to send me a message anytime and just happy to connect.
Amazing. I will leave everything down below here for anyone who wants to check that out or get in touch with Jason. And if you're still listening to this episode, you want to hear more conversations like this, please hit the subscribe button and I will see you on the next episode. Jason, thanks again so much.
Thank you. Take care.